To discuss is MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor. Michael, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I am curious what you think, not only about the pretty dramatic pullback we've seen in the price of Bitcoin since that peak earlier this month, but also what you think about continuing to add to your pile. Why doing so right now made sense.
Well, you know, it's not volatile to an investor with a 1 to 4 year time frame because it's boringly spectacular for the past decade. It's up 200% or more, pretty much on average every year for 10 years running. It's volatile for traders, but traders like volatility, so they're getting the volatility they like. It's attracting a lot of capital in the asset class. I think it's having a stellar year, and 2021 is going to be really good for Bitcoin.
Michael, it's Guy. Thanks for being here. You know, typically I would say you have to be a rocket scientist from MIT to understand this, but you happen to be exactly that. So I'm going to ask you this question. You're basically, first of all, I admire your temerity. I admire your passion about this. I truly do. And obviously it's reflected in your stock price. But how do the employees of the company feel about this? Because this is a huge bet in a lot of ways on the future of your company.
Well, you know, when Google and Facebook and Amazon and Apple came out and they launched their digital networks, and when the internet came along and it was a new digital network for information, people weren't quite sure if they should embrace them. But I think 30 years later, companies that know how to use the internet and know how to work with Apple and Google and Facebook and social networks are the leading edge companies, and they're winning. Our employees are pretty delighted that we're pioneers in commercializing and integrating with this digital monetary network, because this is going to be the future.
And so I'm not going to ask you to play, stock market as we typically do, but what's the best case scenario for the price of Bitcoin? Like, what are you looking for? What are you planning? Because I would imagine at some point this has to come up on the earnings call, which I believe is within a week or so from now.
Well, look, I mean, Bitcoin's a digital monetary network, and the asset itself is the technically superior asset. It's the ideal institutional safe haven asset. So what's the future? The future is to flip gold. It's going to replace gold, and then after it replaces gold, it's going to become the monetary index that replaces stock indexes like the S&P 500, the Dow, the bond indexes, and the like. Because people that want to store their money, they want a safe haven store of value over the next 10 to 30 years, are going to be attracted to a digital asset that has no inflation in it.
Yeah, and I think you yourself in the past have basically said that your P&L is a software company, your balance sheet is invested in Bitcoin, though. That being said, the stock is moving. Whichever way Bitcoin goes on a daily basis, the stock is moving right along with it. It's almost become a stock market proxy for crypto. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, corporations everywhere in the world that are cash rich, they're looking at their cash and they're saying cash is a liability. They have to find an asset that's going to appreciate faster than the rate of monetary expansion. So I think what you're going to see this year is corporations are going to embrace Bitcoin either on their balance sheet like we have, because it converts a liability into an asset, or they're going to do what Square and PayPal and Grayscale have done, and they're going to build Bitcoin into their products and services, because you're talking about them all the time. Their stocks are going up. Grayscale's from $2 billion to $20 billion in assets under management in 12 months. There's a reason why. They have differentiated their products and their services with a big tech monetary network that's exploding at 200% a year. I think it's going to continue for the decade. And, everybody with cash has that opportunity. So I think our employees are delighted. Our shareholders are delighted. And I think you're going to see an avalanche of new companies do the same thing, either on their balance sheet or on their P&L.
Michael, again, I'm a huge admirer of what you guys and gals are doing there. So my next question would be, though, just to sort of, again, try to take the other side. What are concerns around regulation under the Biden administration moving forward?
You know, there's every indication that this incoming class of regulators are informed, they're thoughtful, they're progressive. They know how important digital assets are to the competitiveness of the financial industry, both in the United States and also to the progression across the world. I think that crypto assets and Bitcoin has had a little bit of regulatory ambiguity in it. Regulatory clarity and that is bringing it into parity with other assets that institutions hold, like stocks and bonds. That parity and clarity is going to be a great thing. It's going to cause an avalanche of money to flow from institutions and corporations into Bitcoin. And so they're welcoming it, and I welcome it. I think it's going to be a good thing for the industry.
Yeah, and just along those lines, Michael, I realized you made headlines not that long ago for having an exchange on Twitter with Elon Musk around the topic of Bitcoin. And I also realized that you're probably not going to comment on what those conversations offline have looked like if they've actually taken place. But you are now planning on a conference, Bitcoin for Corporations. What has the response from other companies been? What are you expecting in terms of this conference?
We're going to have thousands of executives, officers, and directors and advisors of corporations coming together in the first week of February. They all want to figure out how to plug Bitcoin into their balance sheet or their P&L. We're going to publish our playbook, all of our accounting guidance, our legal guidance, all the work we did over the course of months in order to get ready to do this as a publicly traded company. And we're going to open source it and make it available to everybody with the thought of saving each of them millions of dollars and weeks, if not months, in order to make this an easier transition.
Who's going?
It's going to be a great event.
Who's going?
I can't tell you now, but you'll find out. You're welcome to come.
Okay. Michael Saylor, I may just take you up on that. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.